Hello and welcome to Lynchburg Live. I'm your host, Linda Smith. Have you ever thought how frightening it might be to find yourself a victim of a crime and also that you have to testify about that crime? In Lynchburg, there's a program that provides information and support through the court process to victims and witnesses. My guest tonight is Susan Clark, Director of Lynchburg's Victim Witness Advocate Program, who will be telling us about the support that your program offers. So glad to have you here, Susan.
Thank you.
Can you tell us as we get started what the goals are for the Victim Witness Advocate Program?
The goal for the program is to ensure that victims and witnesses of crime are have compassion, that throughout the criminal justice process that they are treated with fairness and compassion, and that they realize that they do have rights as a victim of confidentiality and victim input and everything from financial assistance. So the goal is to make sure that they are as comfortable as possible throughout the process and that they understand the process, because the criminal justice system is a scary process.
You know, you hear so often on television about victims who really get sort of turned into the perpetrator. And so it's nice to know that there's somebody out there who's speaking up for these people and taking them under their wing and making it an easier process.
And I think with the fallacy of that is TV.
Right.
A lot of times you see the TV programs and they see lawyers yelling at them, and they're scared of everything because of what they see on TV. And I think that's where we are there to help them with that myth that it's nothing like the TV version.
That's great. I mean, I think that it's such a needed program that you have. All right, now I understand that the Lynchburg Victim Witness Program was really the first of its kind in Central Virginia. Is that true?
That is correct. That's correct. In 1986, the Department of Criminal Justice Services, there were grants that were available to start victim witness programs, and Lynchburg was one of the first victim witness programs in Central Virginia to begin the program. And there are programs in Camp County now, there are programs in Amherst County, Bedford County, Appomattox County. If I'm not mistaken, it's now about 121 programs throughout the state.
That's wonderful. You know, I understand that you were kind of instrumental in getting this program started. Can you tell us how it got started?
Well, once I used to work for VASAP, Virginia Alcohol Safety Action Program, and then I saw an ad in the paper about this program, and I was extremely interested, and came to Lynchburg and interviewed for the job, and was fortunate enough to obtain this job. I was a single person program for 9 years.
Oh my.
Then more grant funds came out, and now I have 3 advocates and myself that work with victims of crime. And I started out working mostly with domestic violence victims, and then now we work with every victim of crime, whether you're trespassing, a person that has been trespassed against, all the way to murder, child abuse, just any crime we will assist in.
I think that's great. And it's interesting to me that this was the first program in Central Virginia, and it's branched out, and the need is there, and I appreciated the need. All right, is the Victim Witness Program a division of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office? Didn't you tell me that?
Yes, we are. We work in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, and in most jurisdictions they are located in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. There are a few that are in nonprofit organizations and a few that are in the Sheriff's Department or police departments. But we work in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, work with our attorneys every day, have access to all of the computer systems and court systems, so it's wonderful for us to be in the same office with them.
So what is your role exactly?
Our role consists of everything from contacting the victim from the beginning. We may have a police officer that will contact us and let us know that a victim that they've worked with the victim that night before. We review every police report, every warrant that comes through that's taken out. We will open up any violent crime file. Then this is victim witness, opens up their own file. So we work with violent victims of crime. A victim can contact us themselves. They get an information sheet from the police department. If you're a victim of crime, the police officer will give you a sheet, and it has all of our information, so you can make a self-call to us.
That's great.
That has all of the services that we can provide. We make the initial contact within 24 hours of receiving the information that we have a victim or that there is a victim. We're going to contact them. We're going to let them know about the whole process from start to beginning, what they have to look forward to. Bond, if the defendant is on bond or if there's going to be a bond hearing, we're going to notify them of every hearing that comes up before the hearing comes up.
So nothing's really a surprise. As
Right,
long as you all are there
correct.
for them, they get no surprises and they're informed all the way.
And just explaining what each hearing is. A lot of times victims will get upset because they understand, well, the defendant was in court, why weren't we there? Well, there's an advisement where the judge just advises them of what they've been charged with and their right to obtain an attorney. So nobody is there except for the defendant and the judge. So it's just understanding every step of the way, because in the criminal justice system, it's the fear of the unknown.
Oh, certainly it is.
It's the fear of, not understanding the whole process and knowing how many trials they're going to have to come to and whatnot.
What kind of educational background do you have to be in the position that you're in?
A 4-year degree in either criminal justice, sociology, social work, with any related background experience that you may have.
And I think you just said, but what were you doing at the time that you...
I was working for Virginia Alcohol Safety
That's
Action
right.
Program, VASAP, as a case manager there, and working with defendants and since 1986. Of course, I started when I was 12, just to let you know.
Okay, I understand.
I have been working with victims of crime, and absolutely, it is my passion.
That's great. Now, you told me just a minute ago that you're not the only advocate now in this program. That
Correct.
You have how many others?
3 other advocates in the program.
Do all of you have specialties? Like, would one of you be more inclined to do domestic violence cases while somebody else would be?
We do have 2 of our advocates are specializing in domestic violence. The purpose of having advocates that specialize in domestic violence is you build a rapport with victims. Oftentimes in domestic violence cases, they don't come through the system one time. They may come through numerous times. So having a familiar face when you're going through the system, or a lot of times if there is an incident, they will call up the victim advocate to say, hey, this has happened, what should I do? Where do I go from here? So we do have 2 advocates that work mainly with domestic violence victims.
I think that has to be very reassuring and calming to someone who is a victim and in that position, to know that if they come back, they're going to see the same kind face and somebody that they've developed a rapport with. I mean, I just think that's a very well-planned program to do it that way.
And our goal is to let them know that it may happen again, and please know that you can come back and we will be there to assist you. A lot of domestic violence victims may not be entirely, they may recant their story because for whatever reason, whether they're scared or whatnot, and think, oh, well, they aren't going to want to work with me again because maybe I didn't exactly tell everything that really happened. No, we are there. It's frustrating for the victim, it's frustrating, for the whole system, but we want them to know that we are going to be there no matter what.
I think just talking to you, I think that you guys understand that these people feel intimidated by the spouse or the abuser, and that they may not always come forward with everything. And I think just knowing somebody understands you and is not critical of the way you present something certainly makes a difference to them wanting to come back, if the need be.
Economic reasons. I mean, a lot of times victims of domestic violence have never worked before. They aren't allowed to work because of the control. Right. So it's easy to say, well, why doesn't she leave? I mean, but that's not easy when you have 4 children and no income. There are services out there, there's shelters, and we try to hook them up with as many services as we can to empower them to be able to say, yes, you can leave.
Right.
You don't deserve this.
My next question it's sort of an all-inclusive question, and we've answered some of them already, but I wanted to know, what services does the program offer to victims and witnesses?
Everything from explaining the whole criminal justice process step by step. We will send over bond notifications to the jail to make sure they're notified if somebody is released on bond from the jail. We will accompany them to every court hearing, and that's to have that security of someone there with them, and just to explain every step of the way what's going on, because there are motions and whatnot going on during the court, and they're like, why is that happening? What's going on? And we're there to explain every step. Most importantly, we're there to make referrals for whether it be counseling services, emergency shelter, anything that we can with any victim of crime. As I said, we not only work with domestic violence, but families of homicide victims. We assist in allowing them or assist them in filling out criminal injuries compensation, which is a state organization that will pay for unreimbursed funeral bills, medical bills, if you're a malicious wounding victim and you have medical bills. If you are unable to work, then they assist you with lost wages if you're unable to work because of the crime. Assist with prescriptions. It's just a wonderful fund that assists victims of violent crime. The only thing that you have to be is an innocent victim of a crime. You have to report it to the police department in a timely manner, and you can't have contributed in any way to your injury. Say a drug deal gone bad and you were injured in that. Those sort of things. The fund is paid for through defendants' court costs.
I wanted to ask you about who refers these people to you, or can they come to you themselves?
We have self-referrals, victims referring victims that we've worked with in the past. The police department refer victims. Of course, like I told you, we do receive a copy of every warrant that comes through. The Commonwealth Attorney will review every misdemeanor warrant to find out if it's something that we need to be involved in. And any felony case that involves a victim, then we're going to be in contact, whether it's by giving them a phone call, sending them a letter. The letter is going to include the name of the victim advocate that's assigned to the case and the attorney that's assigned to the case. So if they have any questions.
That's great.
We also give them, we have a victim witness handbook, and it's a brochure and it has all that information given to them. So that's sent in the mail.
I imagine that you work closely with the police department.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are very, very closely tied with the police department, with investigators, with police officers. We do police officers training to make sure they understand who we are and what we can do for them to help them.
It has to be extremely frightening to be first a victim of a crime and then be expected to be a witness against your perpetrator, or that just has to be a very frightening experience for people.
It is extremely, and what we try to do is we try to bring victims in so they can get to know the prosecutor, and the prosecutor will go over the questions that they may need to answer in court. We attempt to prepare them, you know, like ask them questions and let them answer them like they're in court. We do courtroom tours.
That was very interesting to me that you did that.
And that is, you know, as I said, it's the fear of the unknown, and all they know is what's on TV. So being able to actually sit in the witness stand, see who's going to be where's the defendant if he's incarcerated, where's he going to come out, you know, into the courtroom where they're going to see him for the first time. Little things like that just assist. You just wouldn't believe the anxiety level goes way down once they understand, because the next day or the next week they come in and they know
Right.
where everybody is and what you're going to be expected to do.
I would imagine that the more things, places within this process that they can be familiar with ahead of time makes it a much easier process emotionally for them and takes some of the stress off.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How do you become involved in a case?
We receive referrals from, as I said, we receive the warrants. So we're going to make that, we're going to initiate that. We receive referrals from anywhere between the shelter. Anybody can make a referral, but especially the victim information sheet that the police officer gives out. That has all of our information so they can make their self-referral. But we do most of the contacting the victims ourselves by just reading the police reports, reviewing warrants and whatnot.
What size caseload do you have in the Lynchburg area?
Well, probably each advocate averages, I'd say, our reports go about 400 victims a quarter. Not each advocate, but for the four of us, it's about 400.
That's a lot
It
of
is.
people here in this town. Now you also work with patients. I'm a nurse, and that just comes up every now and then. You also work with people who are not necessarily victims, but who have witnessed a crime. How does that differ from working with a victim?
It doesn't. We don't necessarily bring them in the office for an interview, but we will be in court to again, explain exactly what's going on through the system. A lot of victims or witnesses may have some special needs, whether they're handicapped with a wheelchair or whatnot. We're going to assist them in getting them in a handicapped parking spot and getting them into the courtroom and whatnot. But they have the same fears that a victim have. Fear of retaliation because of what they see on TV again.
Exactly.
So we're there, and it's just having that person to bounce things off of and to explain that's TV. It isn't, we can't guarantee it's never going to happen, but it isn't something that is happens very often.
How do you reassure them, or how do you make sure that they're safe? I mean, I'm sure that's an issue some of the time.
Right. If it's a high-profile case, or it's a case that we feel that there are going to be a lot of people on the defendant side in the courtroom, we will ask for extra security. We will have an officer escort them to their car before and after, if need be. Doesn't happen that often, but there are times just to give them that sense of security.
Something you mentioned to me that I really hadn't thought of a lot of the things, that you do until I started researching this. But in talking about dealing with the witness, you brought up dealing with children as witnesses and how that's different because it has to be. Can you tell us a little bit about dealing with a child as a witness?
Their attention span is a whole lot shorter than the adult. We will bring them in and really build that rapport. It may be once, it may be twice, as many times as needed. We spend a lot of time on the courtroom tour. We allow them to go sit in the judge's chair, and we make it like almost like a field trip. So they're a little excited about that. It makes them feel more comfortable. We introduce them to the security, the bailiffs that are going to be in court, that day, and that makes them feel comfortable. And the bailiffs get on their level and let them know, hey, we're going to keep you safe. So there are many things that we do with children.
Is it different for children who are the actual victims?
Is it
a different situation dealing with those kids?
All children are difficult to deal with, but a lot of times it is, dealing with victims that are children are probably the most difficult victims that we work with.
I'm sure that has to be very difficult.
It's just heart-wrenching.
On a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a lot of that in this area?
I won't say a lot, but it is there. That's for sure.
Something that I was going to ask you toward the end, but I'm going to ask you now because I think it's kind of funny. You said that people confuse you with the witness protection program.
Right.
And
a lot of people think the victim witness program is the witness protection program, and we're not the victim witness protection program. Matter of fact, the funding, if I'm not mistaken, for the witness protection program has dried up, but we are there. We will help victims if they're concerned about protection before trials. We'll have put on the roll call book for them, the police department, to do extra security by their house. Something so they see the presence of police officers coming by their house. We'll do whatever we can to make them try to feel as secure as possible.
It just, I wouldn't have thought that there would be confusion there with those two things, but I can see.
They just assume that
it would. It's something I kind of wanted to touch on. In doing research, I found out about the Lynchburg City Family Violence Fatality Review Team.
Yes.
Could you just sort of tell me what that is? Because I think it's a very interesting thing to have.
Yes, we have Lynchburg has a fatality review team. We started in 2001, and Bill Petty, which was the Commonwealth Attorney at that time, was very instrumental in starting the fatality review. Mainly because in 2001 we had 4 domestic violence homicides in 1 year. So the General Assembly came through and allowed us to have a fatality review team. And it is a wonderful, wonderful way to come together with a lot of organizations from the police department, the magistrate, judges, community services. It's about 15 organizations that come together once a month, and we review fatalities. And the goal is to review a fatality, domestic violence fatality, to find out what kind of systems response we had, the good things, what we could improve on. It's not a blame game. It's just a time we come together and look at every social history, to domestic violence, to protective orders, whatever has been going on with this couple in the past. And I know that one of the questions you asked me, had it made a difference? I don't want to jinx anything, but we have been very fortunate since 2001 to only have 1 fatality that's domestic violence related.
I think the more you know about a situation, the better prepared you are to handle it. And I imagine that you're able to get some of these people out of that situation if the statistics point to the possibility that this is definitely going to lead in that direction.
Correct.
That's
correct.
Believe it or not, we only have about 3 more minutes. This goes by very fast. But I did want to ask you, if someone is out there watching us tonight who has been a victim or or has witnessed a crime, but they're afraid to come forward, what would you say to that person?
I would say contact your local law enforcement. If you don't feel comfortable contacting your local law enforcement, contact your local victim witness program. Each area, each jurisdiction has their own victim witness program. And what people don't understand is you need to go with the jurisdiction that the crime has occurred.
Okay.
So you don't get bounced from one to the other. So if the crime occurred in Campbell County, then you contact your Campbell County, either Sheriff's Department or Victim Witness Program. But I would strongly encourage you to make the phone call. It doesn't mean that you have to go to court. Just make that phone call and, you know, feel better about.
Right. And if they want to take it farther, there are people who will be there with them to support them and
Absolutely.
help them. Now, you personally, what are your greatest rewards in working in this job?
Well, I've been working in it for 27 years, and I'll be in public every day, and I have people come up and say, "Thank you so much for what you did for me," and to see victims that come through horrific crimes and have made a success. You know, children that come out of the courtroom and they give you a big hug just because they're so proud of themselves that they did it.
That has to be very rewarding for you.
And like we talked about before, passion.
Yeah.
This is definitely a passion of mine and will be for the rest of my life.
Well, I hope you will come back, because I'd like to discuss one of the things we were discussing just a minute ago about this Fatality team. I think that's very interesting, and I'd like to get into that more in depth. But I thank you so much for coming and
Thank you
being
for
my
having me.
guest. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show and learning more about the Lynchburg Victim Witness Advocate Program. My next show will feature an interview with Lynchburg's entrepreneur, Tony Cam. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.